Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kalam karma svabham cha mayesho maya swayam atman yadruchaya praptam vibhoshuhu padade.
Translation: the Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency, eternal time, the fate of all living entities, and their particular nature for which they are created, and he again merges them independently.
कालाद् गुणव्यतिकरः परिणामः स्वभावतः कर्मणो जन्म महतः पुरुषादिष्टादभूत्.
After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karanavasi Vishnu, the Mahat Tattva or the principles of material creation take place, and then time is manifested, and in course of time the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances, they transform into activities.
महतस्तु विकुर्वाणाद् रजः सत्त्वोः बृंहितात् तमः प्रधानस्तु अभवत् द्रव्यज्ञानक्रियात्मकः.
Material activities are caused by the Mahatattvas being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the modes of goodness and passion, and later, due to mode of ignorance, matter, its knowledge, and different activities of material knowledge come into play.
सोऽहङ्कार इति प्रोक्तो विकुर्वन् समभूत्त्रिधा वैकारिकः तैजसश्च तामसश्च इति यद्भिदा द्रव्यशक्तिः क्रियाशक्तिः ज्ञानशक्तिः इति प्रभो.
The self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creations, and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this.
तामसादपि भूतादेः विकुर्वाणादपुन्नभः तस्य मात्र गुणः शब्दो लिङ्गं यदृष्टुदृश्ययोः.
From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen.
नभसोऽत विकुर्वाणात् अपुस्पर्शा गुणोऽनिलहं परन्वयाच्च यच्छब्दवंश प्राणवोजः सहो बलं वायोरपि विकुर्वाणात् कालकर्म स्वभावतः उदपद्यत तेजो वै रूपवत्स्पर्शशब्दवत् तेजसस्तु विकुर्वाणात् आसीत् अम्भोरसात्मकं रूपवत्स्पर्शवत् स्पर्शवच्चाम्भो घोषवच्चा परान्वयात् विशेषस्तु विकुर्वाणात् अम्बसो गन्धवान् अभूत् परान्वयात् रसस्पर्शा शब्दरूपा गुणान्वितः.
Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed into course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice and taste. As previously, it has also form and touch and is also full of sound. And water being transformed from all variegatedness on earth appears odorous and as previously becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form respectively.
वैकारिकात्मनो यज्ञे देवा वैकारिकादशं दिग्वात अर्कप्रचेतोऽस्मि वह्नि ऐन्द्र उपेन्द्रमित्रकाः.
From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence.
तैजसा तु विकुर्वाणात् इन्द्रियाणि दशाभवन् ज्ञानशक्तिः क्रियाशक्तिः बुद्धिः प्राणश्च तैजसौ श्रोत्रं त्वग्रानदृग्जिह्वौ वाग्धोर्मेढ्र अङ्घ्रिपायवः.
By further transformation of the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuating, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated.
यदैते असङ्गता भावा भूतेन्द्रियमनोगुणाः यदा यतननिर्माणे न सेकुः ब्रह्मवित्तमा.
O Narada, best of the transcendentalists, the forms of the body cannot take place as long as these created parts, namely the elements, senses, mind, and modes of nature, are not assembled.
तदा संवृत्य चान्योन्यं भगवच्चक्तिचोदिताहं सदसत्मुपाधाय चोभयं ससृजुर्यदः.
Thus, when all these become assembled by force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary cause of creation.
वर्षपूगसहस्रान्ते तदण्डम् उदकेशयं कालकर्मभावस्तो जीवो अजीवम् अजीवयत्.
Thus, all the universes remained thousands of aeons within the water, the causal ocean, and the Lord of living beings entered into each of them, caused them to be fully animated.
स एव पुरुषः तस्मात् अण्डं निर्विज्य निर्गतः सहस्रो अङ्घ्रिबाह्वक्षः सहस्राननशेषवान्.
Mataji, could you just scroll up, please? Thank you. The Lord Mahavishnu, although lying in the causal ocean, came out of it and dividing himself as Hiranyagarbha. He entered into each universe and assumed the Virata Rupa with thousands of legs, arms, mouths, heads, etc.
यस्य इह अवयवैः लोकान् कल्पयन्ति मनीषिणः कच्चादिभिः अधः सप्त सप्तोध्वं जगनादिभिः.
Great philosophers imagine that the complete planetary systems in the universe are displays of the different upper and lower limbs of the universal body of the Lord.
पुरुषस्य मुखं ब्रह्म क्षत्रमेतस्य बाहवः ऊर्वोर्वैश्यो भगवतः पद्भ्यां शूद्रो व्यजायत.
The Brahmanas represent his mouth, the Kshatriyas his arms, the Vaishyas his thighs, and the Shudras are born of his legs.
भूर्लोकः कल्पितः पद्भ्यां भुवर्लोकोऽस्य नाभितः हृदा स्वर्लोक उरसा महर्लोको महात्मनः.
The lower planetary systems, up to the limit of the earthly stratum, are said to be situated in his legs. The middle planetary systems, beginning from Bhuvar Loka, are situated in his navel, and the still higher planetary systems, occupied by the demigods and highly cultured sages and saints, are situated in the chest of the Supreme Lord.
ग्रीवायां जनलोकोऽस्य तपोलोकः स्तनद्वयात् मुद्दभिः सत्यलोकस्तु ब्रह्मलोकः सनातनः.
From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal.
तत्कट्यां चातलं क्लुप्तं ऊरुभ्यां वितलं विभोः जानुभ्यां सुतलं शुद्धं जङ्गाभ्यां तु तलातलं महातलं तु गुल्पाभ्यां प्रपदाभ्यां रसातलं पातालं पातलता इति लोकमयः पुमान्.
My dear son Narada, know from me that there are 7 lower planetary systems out of the total 14. The first planetary system, known as Atala, is situated on the waist. The second, Vitala, is situated on the thighs. The third, Sutala, on the knees. The fourth, Tala, on the shanks. The fifth, Mahatala, on the ankles. The sixth, Rasatala, on the upper portion of the feet, and the seventh Patala, on the soles of the feet. Thus, the Virat form of the Lord is full of all planetary systems.
भूर्लोकः कल्पितः पद्भ्यां भुवर्लोकोऽस्य नाभितः स्वर्लोकः कल्पितो मूर्ध्ना इति वा लोककल्पना.
Others may divide the whole planetary systems into 3 divisions, namely the lower planetary systems on the legs up to the earth, and middle planetary systems on the navel, and the upper planetary systems, Swarloka, from the chest to the head of the Supreme Personality.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Well, it's very nice to be with all of you. Just to check, I should now begin the Mangalacharan. Is that the correct schedule?
That's right, Prabhuji. Yes. Thank you.
Om Gyanatamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sachivam Advaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakam Vitamscha Shri Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinobando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Apta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Panamami Hari Priye Anchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vineva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to be with all assembled devotees tonight. As always on Zoom, it's a little hard to properly see you all. when some of your names are iPad and iPhone. But my dear iPad Prabhu and iPhone Devidasi, I'm very privileged and honored to be with you today. So we are on chapter 5 of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'll just share my screen. I'll get the verse for discussion up today. Yes, this entire chapter is somewhat, I guess we could say, technical. For the pure devotee, one who can actually relish Bhagavatam, it said, Shri Krishna Parivartita. This Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. And therefore, the pure devotee, they see no difference whatsoever between different parts of the Bhagavatam. Of course, they see difference. This is one sees difference between Krishna's feet and Krishna's head, but they see it all as Krishna. Whereas when we are more conditioned, we see some parts as simply philosophical and other parts as more relishable. But ultimately, we cannot properly appreciate Sri Krishna and his pastimes without actually understanding and being very fixed in the conviction of understanding who he is and how he has created this material manifestation to facilitate our desires, etc. But nonetheless, even out of this entire chapter, which is somewhat technical, then this particular series of verses is also very technical. So yes, I thank whoever has chosen this verse. Has made me try to understand these things a bit more. Often I'm inclined to somewhat skip over them due to laziness. So we'll read the verse and begin on the purport. So translation: because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch. And by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch and is also full of sound. And water being transformed from all variegatedness on earth appears odorous and as previously becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form respectively. So, very clear. I'm sure you all understood that perfectly. It took me a couple of readings to at least try and, you're reading it and you go, well, I know what all these words mean. Every word here, I understand the word. But sometimes when this word is in a particular context, I don't understand the collection of the words together. But by properly just trying to understand it, we make a lot of advancement. Prabhupada said, try to understand Krishna. He didn't say understand Krishna. We cannot fully understand Krishna. And same, Prabhupada said even the purports, etc., is hearing the lectures of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, his spiritual master. He said, I could not understand, but repeatedly by trying, then it became clear. So, yes, even by the endeavor of trying to understand Bhagavatam, then we're actually serving Bhagavatam. Yeah, again, in this Mahima Stotra, Srila Sanatana Goswami, which is glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, you are to be served by everybody. We all have to serve Bhagavatam. And we can serve Bhagavatam by trying to understand and assimilate and practice what Bhagavatam is telling us. So we'll begin with the purport. The whole process of creation, is an act of gradual evolution and development from one element to another, reaching up to the variegatedness of the earth as so many trees, plants, mountains, rivers, reptiles, birds, animals, and varieties of human beings. The quality of sense perception is also evolutionary, namely generated from sound, then touch, and from touch to form. Taste and odor are also generated with the gradual development of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. They are all mutually the cause and effect of one another. But the original cause is the Lord himself in plenary portion as Mahavishnu lying in the causal water of the Mahatattva. As such, Lord Krishna is described in the Brahma Samhita as the cause of all causes. And this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8 as follows. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti imam pura bhava samanvitaha. The qualities of sense perception are fully represented in the earth, and they are manifested in other elements to a lesser extent. In the sky there is sound only, whereas in the air there are sound and touch. In the fire there are sound, touch, and shape, and in the water there is taste also, along with the other perceptions, namely sound, touch, and shape. In the earth, however, there are all the above mentioned qualities with an extra development of odor also. Therefore, on the earth there is a full display of variegatedness of life, which is originally started with the basic principle of air. Diseases of the body take place due to derangement of air within the earthly body of the living beings. Mental diseases result from special derangement of the air within the body, and as such, yogic exercises is especially beneficial to keep the air in order, so that diseases of the body become almost nil by such exercises. When they are properly done, the duration of life also increases, and one can have control over death by such practices. A perfect yogi can have command over death and quit the body at the right moment, when he is competent to transfer himself to a suitable planet. The Bhakti yogi, however, surpasses all the yogis because by dint of his devotional service, he is promoted to the region beyond the material sky and is placed in one of the planets in the spiritual sky by the supreme will of the Lord, the controller of everything. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. So, I guess we could say somewhat technical verse, and the purport is somewhat technical, but again, Prabhupada's purports are so lucid that the real essence is made very, very clear for us. If we could just give us a brief summary of the purport. Prabhupada described how Krishna manifests the material world. Quotes one of the Chatur Shloki of the Bhagavad Gita, stating that by understanding that Krishna is manifested and is the source of all the material spiritual worlds, Buddha Bhava Samanvita, then one actually engages in his devotional service. Those who are wise, they worship him with devotion. And therefore, Prabhupada is describing how actually one who is a devotee does not necessarily need to be able to know in perfect detail and be able to completely work in accordance with the system. See, the yogis are not interested. Their goal is not to know Krishna. The yogi has some desire for the ability to manipulate the material situation. And it can be very subtle. People think what they're doing is spiritual. People think that, okay, if I do this sort of meditation, I can elevate my mind, I can develop certain mystic cities, basically what you call magical powers, which seems spiritual. You can get free from so much suffering, etc. of the body. You can control the mind. And ultimately, you can actually determine where you're going when you leave the body. You can be completely in control, that you can determine when you leave the body, and therefore you can determine where you go. But ultimately, all this is still within the realm of the material universe. And only if the yogi actually develops bhakti by the association with devotee does he actually come to the point of rendering service to Krishna. But one who is a devotee, of course, he surpasses all the yogis because Krishna personally takes care of him. It's stated in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. They said in the 12th chapter that Arjuna, he's asking, who is more advanced? The one who constantly meditates upon you and serves you, or one who is more interested in looking for the unmanifest, perhaps the Paramatma or the impersonal Brahman? Krishna says very, very emphatically, very emphatically and very clearly that those who are constantly meditating upon me are the highest. And Krishna gets personally involved in their life and is a swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. And Klesho, what's the verse? Klesha Prastesham Avyaktak Chesasam. Avyakto he become there have one of these verses which somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm trying to scramble it, so I won't go any further. But he says, for those who are embodied, then this this process of trying to find the super soul, he said avyakta, what is unmanifest, what we cannot see, is very, very difficult. And klesho actually causes great pain. You know, the yogic process is very, very painful. It involves great austerities, giving up so much different forms of sense gratification, etc. And ultimately, it is not assured of success. Whereas the process of bhakti, susukam, is joyfully performed, and its success is guaranteed. Prabhupada writes, of course, in that famous purport in the Nectar of Instruction, that the process is so potent and pure that when one begins it, one is forcibly dragged to success. You know, it kicking and screaming, Krishna is still taking us. But nonetheless, bhakti has its challenges as well. It's joyfully performed. So regarding this actual verse, the first question that comes to mind for me, of course, we have this description that comes up multiple times in Bhagavatam of how from one thing, then one thing is a cause of another thing, which is the cause of another thing. And from that initial cause, then you have varied gitiness. Just as we can see from perhaps one seed, the example is given of the seed of the banyan tree, then this, if it's fructified and has sufficient nutrients, etc., will grow into an entire tree with so many branches and leaves and trunks and fruits, and ultimately so many hundreds of other seeds. So from one becomes many. The same when Krishna manifests this material world, it starts off this unmanifest state, this pradhan. When Krishna enters into it, then over the course of time, then it becomes full of variety. We can simply to facilitate the different desires of the living entities. So it goes from sound to touch, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. In terms of the senses, in terms of elements, it goes sky, air, fire, water, earth. So they go from what we know as subtle. The word subtle basically means difficult to grasp. You know, if you think of sound, like you think music, like perhaps like an orchestra is playing. How can you actually encapsulate what is that sound in terms of words? It's very difficult. It's very subtle. It's beyond our ability to capture within words. And it goes from subtle to more gross. And gross means what is very easy to see and to describe and to capture. You know, objects are in front of you. Tree, a table, the earth. These things are very, we say very gross. Gross is not meaning like, there's an American sort of slang word, gross, which sort of means like disgusting. That is not the meaning of gross. I was very confused when I started hearing that. What is the gross? Yeah, the first interesting question which raises for me, everything else, air, I know what air is. Fire, I know what fire is. Sound, I know what sound is. Earth, I know what earth is. Water, these things are clear. But what is sky? What is sky? Ether, sometimes it's translated as. See, when I was at school and things, Well, we had 4 elements. When, of course, we had the periodic table for the many, many different elements. But when you hear about stories, like I said, there's only 4 elements. There's earth, air, fire, and water. And they started reading Bhagavatam, it talks about 5 elements. So what is this ether? So perhaps I may just open it up if any devotees have a very clear, succinct definition of what this ether actually is. Otherwise, you'll have to hear my sort of ramblings based upon the research I've tried to do to try and get a clear answer of what it actually is. So I'm kindly asking devotees if you have any idea of what is this ether, or sometimes Prabhupada translates as sky as well. So in the 7th chapter of the Gita, it's Bhumir Apunalo Vayu Kam Muno Buddhaevacha. Bhumir is earth, fire, water, air, and Kam, Akam is this ether or sky. Here it's translated as Nabasa. So can devotees perhaps unmute and give an answer? What is ether? Otherwise, you're welcome to use the chat function as well. I too was also stumped, so don't feel bad if. Okay. Please, if anything comes to mind, then please enter into the chat. I can share. I did some research. There's some interesting conversations actually with Srila Prabhupada. There's one with Harikesh Swami, who's very, very intelligent devotee, and he's really questioning Prabhupada in this, and Prabhupada doesn't. Prabhupada's making fun of him because he cannot understand, but he's not very. I found I sort of sided with Harikesh Swami. It wasn't so clear. So it says in 26th chapter, the 3rd canto. So these are the activities and characteristics of the ethereal element. So it is the accommodation of room for the external and internal existences of all living entities. So it's basically space, the space where something happens. You know, for instance, you have like someone who's going to do a painting, they have a blank canvas, and that blank canvas initially is something. So that's one of the functions of the ether. And then the field of activities of the vital air, senses, and the mind. And Prabhupada goes on to describe how ether can be seen by the fact that sound and ideas can travel far beyond their material limitations. So say, for instance, I'm in a room with someone and I can speak. Now, what's happening there? There's vibration of the air, and the air is vibrating their eardrum, and the brain is picking up the signals released by the eardrum and is translating to sound. But also ideas of the mind, etc. The mind is material, but it is more subtle. And so ideas of the mind, they transcend far beyond just local jurisdictions. So we see, for instance, there's certain phenomena. I can't remember what it's called, but maybe some of you have heard of it before. Like if one person suddenly learns how to do something, then many, many people surrounding them will also be able to do it. It's seen in animals. Like there was an instance, it was in Scotland actually, and I think one sheep or one cow learned how to, using their mouth, open the gate that was on. Basically, all the different farms in that area had the same type of lock mechanism on the gate, which it wasn't particularly complex, but was designed in such a way that any human being could open it using 2 hands. But like a 4-legged animal, like a sheep, would be unable to open it. But some or other, one sheep learned how to open it using their mouth, etc. And then basically practically simultaneously, many different sheep in different fields were also able to do the same thing. Now, these sheep didn't have some form of underground communication, but the idea within the mind permeated beyond their particular localized existence. And this is one of the ways we can perceive ether. So ether is that space. Again, Prabhupada would also say ether can be seen by the fact that we can transmit radio waves, or like we can see and hear each other over the Zoom platform. Again, I'm not so much of a scientist, so I find it slightly far beyond me. But yeah, Prabhupada's writing this purport. That subtle form exists in the ether has been proven by modern science by transmission of television, by which forms or photographs of one place are transmitted to another place by the action of the ethereal element. So, and then mental activities or psychological actions of thinking, feeling, and willing are also activities on a platform of ethereal existence. So I don't think that's particularly clear, but this is just some of the things I've found. Again, I would like to be able to hear like a very nice, succinct definition that I could actually fully understand, but I have to go with what's here. Yes. So this is ether. Now back to this verse. So we see initially from the ether or the sky. So these ether skies, the same thing. Then air is generated. So from ether, the sense is sound, and from air we have sound and touch. So within air is encapsulated the sound and touch. And then within fire, you have sound, touch, and form. You see fire has particular shape, and by light of fire you can perceive form. And then from fire then comes water, and from water has sound, touch, form, and taste. And then finally earth, which has all of five. So some practical ways you can see this being true is many times, you try and offer flowers to the deities, and someone may just buy a bunch of flowers from the shops. But in the Nectar of Devotion, it's actually stated that it's an offense to offer flowers. Prabhupada translates useless flowers that have no fragrance, that have no smell. It is offensive to offer these to deities. We should offer flowers which have smell. Actually, I did hear once, I would like to know the source, but the smell of flower, it comes from the earth. So here, the earth, odor comes from the earth, smell comes from the earth. So in modern day flowers, oftentimes they're actually grown not on the earth, but on some form of like water that has just particular nutrients which are necessary. So basically, they can grow flowers in some quite often they actually grow them inside with special lighting, so that in a limited space can grow many flowers and sell them, and they look very nice. They last for a long time, but ultimately they've got no smell. They've got no smell because they're not grown on the earth, and the smell comes from the earth. And it's described somewhere. I need to find a source, but the smell of the earth, of the flowers, it comes from sometimes Krishna maybe throws off some garment or something, and when the earth is touched by that garment, then it absorbs this Krishna's smell, and then that comes back in the form of flowers. It's very beautiful, and therefore we cannot worship. See, Krishna is everything, but and so whenever we worship Krishna, it is part of Krishna's energy. This is the beauty of it, actually. This complete, perfect system. So interestingly, we have the initial, which is the ether, then comes multi-variety, so many different shapes of bodies and human beings and animals and trees and birds, and all this variety comes initially from this one element, which is sound. So I found a very, very exciting purport, which I wanted to share with you, because it's describing how ultimately everything begins from sound, but similarly, everything can be ended by sound. Okay, so I'll just read to you. This is Prabhupada, 3rd Canto, 26, verse 32. So it is also stated in the Vedanta Sutra that sound is the origin of all objects of material possession, and that by sound one can also dissolve this material existence. Anavriti Shabda means liberation by sound. The entire material manifestation began from sound, and sound can also end material entanglement if it has a particular potency. So no need to guess what is a particular sound. Prabhupada is going to tell us as that particular potency. But I'll just read it anyways. The particular sound capable of doing this is a transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna. Our entanglement in material affairs has begun from material sound. Now we must purify that sound in spiritual understanding. There is sound in the spiritual world also. If we approach that sound, then our spiritual life begins, and the other requirements for spiritual advancement can be supplied. Jai. I love this purport so much, because basically from this verse we're studying today, we see how complex and rich and entangling this entire material world is. And it's overwhelming. We have to understand that we're like drowning in an ocean full of desire and reactions and sinful reactions and offenses, and we're bound up in this banyan tree of so many causes and effects, and we're completely overwhelmed by it, and by our own merit we just cannot escape. But in this entire banyan tree of cause and effects and entanglement, the root cause of all this is sound, material sound. But if by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and by chanting it purely, this mantra, this spiritual sound, which is Krishna, Vinatvam Nami Namino, Namo Chintamani Krishna, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Nitya Mukta, Purnam Nitya Shuddham, Purnam Shuddham Nitya Mukta, Natvam Nami Namino. This spiritual sound, which is non different from Krishna, is eternal, is liberated, is the essence of all transcendental rasas. Then we can actually bring that into the very core of our existence. It will dissolve this entire material entanglement. And that's how it's said, Ihayasya Harer Dasya Karmana Manasagira, Nikalasha Vyashta Shudjivan Mukta Suchite, that although one may still have a material body, if they're fully engaged in the Lord's service with their body, their mind, their words, then they are liberated. They are Jivan Mukta Suchite, they are liberated, although they may have a material body. Prabhupada says it's like the coconut, which the inside is separated from the outside. And so although it looks like a normal coconut, it's separated. So this entire entanglement of material affairs actually would become completely separated from it if we can actually, the real essence is imbibing that transcendental sound. This is our only means of deliverance. We have to understand in Kali Yuga there is no other means but the chanting of the holy names. And this means, of course, Ayendra Prabhuji gave the nice example that when we take medicine, we take it in two forms. We take tablets orally, and also we take, if we need a stronger dosage, then we need injections, intravenous. You said there's Nam Japa. Japa is tablets. Every day we chant prescribed number of rounds, minimum 16. Prabhupada said minimum 16 on the beats, unlimited off the beats. We should be chanting constantly, but also congregationally chanting loudly together. This is the Yuga Dharma. This is the only way we're going to dissolve this entire entanglement. Because ultimately, this chanting, we have to understand, if it's chanted without offense, then we beg Krishna to descend in his holy name. We beg Krishna to descend in his holy name, and then we're associated with Krishna, and we're associated with Krishna, we're serving Krishna. Serving Krishna, then we develop love. And this love leads ultimately to intense feelings of separation. Thinking, Krishna, why can I not be with you? Why can I not see you? And ultimately, this desperation and intense feeling of wanting to see Krishna, this will burn up all the remaining anarthas are left in us, any material tinges, any desires. This will allow us to come to that pure platform. It's described when Krishna is performing his pastimes. Then Krishna comes with some of his internal associates. He comes with his eternal associates. But also, certain conditioned souls who are almost completely perfect, before they go back to God, they take birth on a planet where Krishna is performing his pastimes. So there's two types of devotees who are associated with Krishna. There's Nitya Siddha, and there's also those who are they're still not completely perfect, but they're almost there. And they're learning by being around the Nitya Siddha devotees. So when Krishna is playing his flute and he's calling the gopis to come, then there's some gopis who are actually they're being banned from coming. They're being held back by their family members, etc. They lock the doors, they keep them there. And it's described these gopis are the ones who they're not yet entirely perfect. They're so close, but there's still the slightest trace of some material contamination. But by that separation, by the fact that they are not able to join Krishna, then that intense fire of separation actually causes them to leave their bodies. But of course, this leaving their body simply means they discard these final tinges of anarthas, a final tinge of any material desire, sense of aham mameti or mameti, the mind and I. And and this is what allows them to associate with Krishna. So this is always waiting for us. So yes, I think I should stop here, and I can't quite remember the schedule, but I think now we ask for questions. So devotees have some questions to share, then it'd be or comments or some corrections, then it'd be very nice to hear reflections from devotees. Hare Krishna. Devotees are very quiet. Okay, yes, please, anybody? If not, I'll start picking on.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
It was so beautifully delivered. I don't think we had such great information from you, well explained, so everybody can understand. I don't think we have any questions at the moment. We just have to go and digest it and see if we have any. Maybe when we see you again, we can ask you.
You're very kind. I think I've simply confused everybody.
No, you didn't confuse us. That's why we can't come up with answers. You give us all the answers. Thank you so much. That was so relishing. I'm sorry I missed the earlier part, but yeah, it's really good. Always it's a pleasure to hear you.
Thank you.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I fully agree with Janu Kanya Mataji. What a beautiful class you gave today. You explained everything so clearly and so well. Thank you so much. We always relish your classes. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. It's a very good class. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please kindly
Great.
accept my humble obeisances. So good to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice
Hare
class,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I have a little question though.
Please.
What comes first? Is it the sky or the sound?
So the sky is the element, and then the sound is the object of sense perception. So it is describing it from it's a good question actually. It seems like the two are simultaneously there. It's like the Prabhupada talks elsewhere about the seen and the seer. That the two exist. Like you can't have, like the example is given in other philosophies of like the tree that falls in the forest, but there's anyone to hear it, and if no one is there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. So similarly, when the sky is there, then the object of sound is also there. But I'm a little bit vague. I mean, in all honesty, I'm very much.
Can I help you a little bit on this, bro?
Please,
So
yeah, if you know.
Bhanu Swami says in one of the Sandarbha descriptions that the ether is the fundamental building block. It's the most subtle of all. Ether element or Akash Tattva in Sanskrit is one of the foundational building blocks. I think it says that ether is without firmness of earth, the coolness of water, the heat of fire, or even the movement of wind, and is therefore the very essence of emptiness. Space element is the most subtle of all elements. So it's a building block from which I think sound requires even ether in order for sound to traverse, requires ether as the transmitting element. I think I'm not an expert in this, but this is what I read from.
Yeah, it's very nice. What, you mind sharing? Where is that from? I would like to read it myself.
I think it's from one of the. I was covering it a few weeks ago. I think it's from one of the Sandarbhas, Bhanu Swami's translations of Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas. You know, there are 6 Sandarbhas, and Jiva Goswami's done a Sandarbha on this particular canto, and I think Bhanu Swami's made some comments on that.
Okay, I'll try to get my hands on it.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry for interrupting.
No, I appreciate it very much. So, there you go, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. You know, sometimes it's a bit confusing because some speakers, they say that first we got the sound and then the sky appears. But from what I have gathered is that from the eternal sky comes the material sky, and the sense object is sound. But the other day on this platform, I heard somebody else said that the sound comes first and then the sky appears. So it's a bit confusing. So similarly, we see that when the sound is churned, then what they say, air is generated, and then the sense object is touch, and then touch comes after. But this is something, as you said, that we have to look into it and to make it clear. So if you, please, can you repeat the literature from where you were reading so that I can find it and find for myself?
Personally, I was just reading from the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam, chapter 26, mainly. But Prabhu was quoting from...
Yes, Prabhuji was quoting something from some literature.
Yeah, the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami, but perhaps he could put it in the chat so that everybody can see.
Okay, Prabhuji. So I will find that. I will find that because as you know, we know that the eternal time, the Kala, it churns the sky, and then sound came, and then from there air comes, and then from air we have form and so on. So yes, that's why I wanted to just confirm, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your nice class and for your time that you have taken to explain to all of us. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Good. So if further questions, I'd like to thank you all very much for allowing me this opportunity to try and serve Bhagavatam and to serve you. Yes, and I please ask you to forgive my offences and mistakes I've made. I'm simply here for the purification I'm trying to be. So, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai, Hari Hari
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Prabhuji. Hare
thank you,
Krishna.
everybody.
Hare
Thank you, Hari
Krishna. Thank
Bol.
you, Prabhuji.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.